So when I decluttered my home, suddenly I had this space in my brain to deal with all this irrational fear. And I was able to overcome things that I was never able to do before.
Welcome to the Christian Woman Leadership Podcast, where we hope to inspire you to embrace your God-given gifts, skills, and passions in order to lead with confidence. We interview amazing and inspiring Christian women in leadership, and we also discuss leadership as a Christian woman in our churches, our businesses, our workplaces, and our homes. We are so glad you're here with us. Now on to the episode. Hi friend, I'm your host Esther Littlefield, and I'm so grateful you're here with me today. On today's episode, you're going to hear about how it's possible to overcome fear, to let go of what no longer serves you, and even declutter to create more physical and mental space within your life. My guest today is Sarah Rose Humes. She's an optimistic and goal-oriented author, speaker, and professional encourager from rural Pennsylvania. She has overcome anxiety, depression, and agoraphobia, and she now lives inspiring other women to live bravely through her business called Encourage Living. Today, you're going to hear me chat with Sarah about her leadership journey, including how she coordinated a VBS ministry for 7 churches in her town for several years. I loved the tips that Sarah shared about leadership in this conversation and the value of sacrificing and surrendering as a leader. Sarah also shares about her personal journey of living in fear for much of her life and how decluttering helped her break free from this fear. I promise you that I had no idea that this episode would be coming out right around the same time as the Tidying Up with Marie Kondo Netflix craze would be happening. But I think that you'll really love hearing this real life story from Sarah and how decluttering helped her to be able to live and lead more effectively as a Christian woman. Before we jump into the conversation, I do want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by the Confident Leader Club. This is a new community that I've created specifically for Christian women leading in ministry or business. If you have a desire for deeper community, personal and spiritual growth, and accountability towards taking action on what you're learning, then this community is for you. The Confident Leader Club is just kicking off, and in it, I'll be providing additional bonus content beyond what you hear here on the podcast. So you'll get to connect with like-minded women, learn, and take action. Visit confidentleaderclub.com to learn more and to join us. So now let's dive into our conversation with Sarah Humes about leadership, living beyond fear, and the power of decluttering. Welcome to this episode of the Christian Woman Leadership Podcast. I am so glad you're here with us today. And today I am talking with Sarah Humes. Sarah, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Esther.
You're welcome. I'm glad to have this conversation today. I'm excited for what you're going to share with us. So for anyone who doesn't know you, can you share a little bit about yourself and tell us a little bit about your leadership journey?
Absolutely. I am mama from northwestern Pennsylvania. I have been married to my husband, David, for 13 years. About 2 years ago, my mom moved in with us, which would be some people's worst nightmare, but we love it. Like my mom moving in with us, we all have the right personalities and temperaments, and it works really well for our family. I just started a new venture, which I didn't actually ever plan on doing, but I am now a Spanish teacher. Um,
Wow.
that is just I just started about a month ago at the beginning of the school year. I do that alongside running a business called Encourage Living, which really I believe God has just brought that ministry to my heart. And I love what I get to do with encouraging people to just live beyond their fears. And
Yeah.
I'm very connected with MOPS International and Moms Next and living,
Mm.
helping people, raise their babies and do it with joy and passion. So that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. Okay, great. So, Sarah, tell me a little bit about your leadership journey and maybe where in your life did you realize that you were a leader?
think I realized that I was a leader very early on. I was um, I was one of those kids who was automatically chosen to be, in student leadership, in student council. Even though I was not at all like a popular kid, I was chosen to be this class president of our senior class, which is
Mhm.
hilarious because I did not know I was responsible for planning class reunions, and I'm not very good at that.
I didn't realize that that was a thing either. Wow.
Yeah, I have not done so well with that, to be honest. um, but so yeah, I just realized really early on that leadership was a part of who I was. And listening to one of your episodes previously where, you know, I'm totally an extrovert. Um, so I think that that does sort of lend itself to leadership.
Mhm,
But other than that, like, I just love people. I love people and I love their hearts. I want to see God's best for them.
mhm.
And I think that's really the heart of leadership. And I love that, when I get put in these roles, that's what I get to do.
Yeah.
As soon as I gave my heart, my life to Jesus, I put myself in a leadership role, and I started running backyard Bible clubs. And I was 13 years old and inviting kids from all over my neighborhood to come over so I could share Jesus with them. And
Wow.
and that was just something I wanted to do because I had that innate sense that I needed to do something because I loved people. And so
Yeah.
that was really exciting.
Yeah. What are some of the other leadership roles that you've found yourself in over the years?
Well, I think that some of them are just natural, like, being a wife and a mom.
Mhm.
One of the things that I think that maybe is a leadership role that other people wouldn't consider, but I take it so seriously that it is a leadership role for me, is being a neighbor. I take neighboring very seriously. I have a cookie bell that I ring when I bake cookies for my neighbors. I try to host as many parties as I can. I try to make sure that I know all my neighbors' names. I try to make sure that if someone was talking about our neighborhood, they would say it is the best neighborhood in the world to live in. And so I consider that a leadership role. And,
Yeah.
being a business owner, that is a huge leadership role, especially because my business is about mentoring people with something life altering like fear, and we can talk about that a little bit later. But um, you know, being a business owner is a huge responsibility, especially when God also called it into a ministry area.
Yeah.
Um, and now stepping into the role of a teacher, the fact that I have students who look at me every single day and I'm a role model for them,
Mm.
that is huge and life altering to me. Like, I do not take that responsibility lightly. And, you know, I consider it to be one of the hugest honors ever. And then, of course, I've talked about the fact that I'm in leadership with MOPS and Moms Next. And then one of the really unique leadership opportunities that I've actually just stepped down from because life was getting a little intense, but I did this for 7 years, was leading our town's vacation Bible school. So our town is very unique in the fact that all 7 Protestant and our Catholic church work together, and we run our vacation Bible school together.
Wow,
And
that's
so,
awesome.
yeah, so I have been the leader that has combined all 7 of those churches.
Mhm.
And that has been a very interesting role. It has been the combining force for
Yeah.
all of those churches. And it's been such a privilege to be the person that's helped connect all the different viewpoints, all the different philosophies, the touch person for all those churches. It was so awesome. And
Mm.
then to be the person who was able to share the gospel with 200 kids every summer
Mhm.
was incredible. It was
Wow.
amazing. So I love
Awes
that.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful. Can you tell us, any lessons that you learned from leading in that capacity and working with so many different organizations? Because that's a big challenge to work with 7 different churches.
It was. The first thing is, I remember the first time, because part of what I had to do was meet with all the pastors and
Yeah.
leadership. and feeling so nervous that first meeting of stepping in with the pastors, and just recognizing that at first I felt almost unworthy to be in the room with all those men, and then recognizing that they were just thankful I was there and that I was showing up and helping them.
Mm,
And that sometimes we're just afraid to do something because we don't feel qualified, but people most of the time are just thankful that you're showing up.
yeah. Yeah.
And it was just huge. And then the other thing that I really learned through that was that my job as that leader was not to do anything, it was to delegate. And it was the biggest lesson that I came up with. And I know that sounds so trite, but it was so true. Like I learned so much about delegating through that position and encouraging people to use their gifts. It was amazing. It was an amazing journey. And I saw people grow and start doing things with leadership that they would have never done themselves. So I got
Right.
to use my position in leadership to help other people step into leadership, and it was
Right.
incredible. So it was amazing.
That's awesome. I love that you shared that because I feel like a lot of times we as leaders feel that we should be the ones doing everything.
Hmm.
But
Yes,
actually that's counterproductive to the role of leadership.
it really
So,
is. It really is.
yeah.
So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Okay. Great. So how would you define leadership? What's your definition of leadership?
Well, I really had spent time praying about this, and I think I came up with like three different definitions on three
Awesome.
different levels.
Okay.
Um, the first one is kind of like a basic definition, and I think that that's recognizing that other people are watching you and being willing to embrace that. And so that's kind of just like the basic definition of leadership.
Yeah.
Um, but then the formal definition, in my opinion, or the formal leadership is everything I just said, but then you have a title and an official responsibility to support those who you are leading. So you have, all the recognition that people are watching you, and then all of a sudden you have a title and responsibilities to go with
Mhm.
it.
Yeah.
But I think that there's even a third level that's more exciting and more beautiful, and that's like true and sacrificial leadership. And that comes when you have everything that I've already mentioned, but then you have general joy and honor about the fact that you get sacrifice and hard work that comes with the leadership. Because leadership comes with honor and respect, yes, but there is sacrifice and there's a lot of hard work that comes with it too.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's some prestige, and you know, there's some things that the power that comes with leadership. But
Mhm.
there's also some real sacrifice and some real hard work that comes with it too. And
Yeah.
so I think that's what's beautiful about when you come to that point of sacrificial leadership that is just so, I believe, God honoring
Yeah.
and really exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. What would
So,
you say are some of the rewards that you've experienced in your leadership?
well, I think one of the things is just honestly, first of all, seeing people turn to Jesus, like
Mm,
getting a chance to share the gospel, no matter what the form is, whether it's in my motherhood,
mhm.
having the opportunity to lead both of my kids to Christ was amazing.
Mm,
And, I will never forget the day that both of my children turned to Christ. It was incredible. And they happened in everyday moments,
yeah.
just sitting on the porch swing with my son and at the dinner table with my daughter, just in everyday moments. So those are just super rewarding moments. But other than that, I think there's something about growing closer to God, because when you are living sacrificially and you are doing things that not only change other people but change you,
Mm,
it's living sacrificially, you cannot help but be changed.
yeah.
And do you mind if I share just this really incredible story with
No,
you that
that'd
so
be great.
yeah, when I took the job at the school I'm working at right now, um I come from a mindset that, it is not a big deal to have a glass of wine or drink every now and then.
Mhm.
And but one of the lines in the contract I signed at the school that I work at says that teachers that work at this school should not drink alcohol. And I was just completely honored to sign that contract because I knew that the way I live gets to influence the students I teach.
Mhm.
And truthfully, if and I'm just going to be really transparent here, this last summer has been a doozy. And there were probably nights that I had consumed more alcohol than I should have. And
Mhm.
so I feel like God brought me to this place
Mm.
because he knew that I needed to sign that contract just as much as the students that I'm teaching need to have amazing role models in their
Mhm.
life. And so I signed that contract, and within the last month, all the opportunities where I could have had a glass of wine or I could have, had a drink, just knowing that I signed that contract because I wanted to glorify my God because of my position in leadership made my heart so happy.
Mm.
And it was just one of those moments where I was just like, God, I'm doing this because I love you.
Yeah.
And it was just incredible.
Mm.
And and I think that even though it was a hard sacrifice, I did it almost excitedly because I was just wanting to be closer to God.
Mhm.
And it wasn't, so many people are like, I can't believe you would let them control you that way. And I'm
Mm.
like, it's not control. It is just this
Yeah.
exciting thing that I get to do because I love God and I love my students.
Yeah.
And it
Right.
was just this most amazing transformation in my life.
Mm.
And I think that surrender is just so exciting.
Right.
Leadership essentially is surrender, and it's exciting. So
Yeah, that's
yeah,
that's awesome. I love that you shared that because I think that there's times that we might need to sacrifice something as a leader that isn't necessarily something wrong or something bad or, sinful,
right,
but it for the time in our life we need to make that sacrifice and it could be different for all of us. It's going to look different for all of us.
right.
Yeah, yeah. So being willing and like you said, being willing to surrender uh some of your own personal desires for the sake of the kingdom is really a blessing.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
Mm, yeah. Okay. So one of the things that we talk with our guests about a lot of times is how God has wired us differently and how God has given us all a unique journey and a unique wiring to how we can live out our leadership. So do you have any tools or resources that have been helpful for you in kind of discovering how you're wired and how God might want to use you in your leadership?
Yeah, I know that a lot of people mention it, but I truly do love the Enneagram. I remember when I first discovered it, I just was like, this is so insightful. It made so much sense. And my husband and I, we immediately shared the Enneagram with our neighbors
Mhm.
because we vacation our next door neighbors, we vacation with them, we do life with them. And so we wanted to understand not only how we work, but how
Yeah,
they work too, so that
right.
we could support each other. And so and it was really funny because we found out that I'm a 7 and my husband is like a 2 and a 6, or no, a 9 and a 6, and, they are the opposite, and
Yeah.
they're a 2 or a 9, whatever it is, but they're like the exact opposite, and it was just so funny, so, like, we're pretty much the same couple, just gender switched, it was really funny,
Yep.
so it was like, no wonder we get along so well,
Yeah.
we mesh well, and
Mm.
it was just really encouraging, and it helped me understand sometimes why I can be a little scattered and a little flighty and
Yeah, so
you
tell
know
me tell me a little bit about your personality and how that's been, both a benefit and sometimes maybe if there's anything that's been challenging for you. about how you're
Yeah.
wired.
Yeah, so I'm a 7 on the Enneagram, and that means that I am always looking for the next thing to come. I think that really drives my entrepreneurial spirit, which
Hmm.
is great when you're a business owner.
Yep.
Um, but that also means that I very much have like the whole squirrel syndrome. And and it can be very frustrating sometimes when I just need to maintain some focus. And maintaining focus can be so difficult for me sometimes.
Mhm.
And e- sometimes my brain just hurts trying to focus. I'm just being honest. I mean, and honestly, like, just listing everything that I've been involved in, you can kind of see that I have trouble maintaining focus. It's a discipline that I struggle with.
Mhm.
But it's because I love everything and I love everyone and I just want to be involved in all the things that God has made. And it's exhausting sometimes.
Right, right.
Yeah, but I just, I'm just driven, and I like that. I like that about myself.
Yeah,
But I also have to figure out how to be not so driven that I exhaust myself
yeah.
because I need to find a balance,
Mhm.
and I know there is one. I'm just gonna find it.
Right, right. Okay, that's awesome.
Yes.
So, I know with your business, with Encourage Living, you help women with overcoming fear. So, can
Yes.
you share a little bit about like, where did that business come from, and is that something you've struggled with yourself?
Yes, I would love to share about that. So, Encourage Living really did come out of my own personal experiences when, especially in my 20s, I pretty much lived in fear nonstop every single day. I had a very, very traumatic childhood, one that dealt with a lot of poverty, one that dealt with a lot of, rodents in my home
Mhm.
and, things that kids should not have to deal with. And it was heartbreaking and hard. And as a result, I dealt with a lot of irrational fear. And so I didn't know what to do with that. And so there were times where if I saw a mouse in my kitchen, which sometimes happens, there would be moments where I was just unable to cook dinner. Like I couldn't go into my kitchen
Mm,
and cook dinner for my family. And then there were times where I was so frozen with fear. Me, the people lover that I am, I couldn't go outside of my home without over medicating myself, without, taking Ativan to step outside of my
mhm,
home, without so there were times where I wouldn't leave my house for weeks, and if I did, it was panic attack after panic attack, and and associating different places with bad memories, and it was probably one of the most heartbreaking times of my life. There were times where I was convinced I was going to die,
mhm,
like every night. Like I'd just be like, well, I'm dying today, and
mm,
I just couldn't think rationally because fear had consumed me. And um after years of therapy and learning, you know, learning how to use truth over how I felt, um I was able to kind of step my way out of that bit by bit. And eventually I was able to, it did take like 8 years. I was able to get healthy. And when I finally was able to get healthy, part of what helped me was I started by decluttering my home. And once I had my home decluttered, my brain was able to have some space. And so I kind of do two things in my business. I help people declutter and I help people overcome their fears. And I believe
yeah,
that the two are intricately connected because a lot of times our homes are so cluttered that we can't deal with what's going on up in our brains.
mhm,
And right now, your viewers can't see this, but right now, your listeners can't see this, but um, I am sitting in a hotel room, and I often tell my clients, I'm like, think about how calm you feel in a hotel room, and it's because we only have what we need. we don't have anything extra when we're in a hotel room.
Mm.
And it's so calming, and we're so happy when we're there. And usually, I mean, yeah, we're on vacation, but usually some of our happiest memories are, places where it's empty and it feels good. And I want that for my clients because I've seen what happens in our home, in
Mm.
my home, now that I have been able to, clear out that space. And it has just been wonderful.
Yeah.
So when I decluttered my home, suddenly I had this space in my brain to deal with all this irrational fear. And I was able to overcome things that I was never able to do before. I touched a chinchilla for the first time in my life. And I was able to say that the fears that had controlled me no longer served me any longer.
Mm.
Just getting here to San Diego right now, I used that thought in my brain so many times on the plane. I was like, yes, it's normal to be fearful on the plane, but that doesn't mean that I shouldn't be here. That
Mm.
fear does not serve me. What serves me is the fact that I get to go experience something amazing. And so,
Yeah.
I just, just learning how to tell yourself the real truth.
Yeah.
And, but we can't tell ourselves the real truth if we're dealing with physical clutter and mental clutter.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
it's just really incredible.
Okay. So, yeah, one of the things that I feel like is so important in leadership is making space and time for fun and rest and white space. And I what I hear you saying is if you're in a space where your physical space is filled up, it's really hard to have that rest that you need and that your brain needs. So
Yes.
can you tell me how did you get to the point where you decided, okay, I've got to declutter? And then how did you go about it? Like what were your steps to do that?
Yeah, so I first heard a podcast actually on Focus on the Family, and Kathy Lip had talked about her 2000 thing challenge, where her and her family had committed to getting rid of 2000 things in a year. Well, I am an all or nothing kind of gal. And I was like, 2000 things a year, we can do this in like 2 months. So so we dove right in, and actually the first night we got rid of 200 items that first night. And so we went through, and it actually took us about 6 weeks to get rid of the first 2,000 things. And it was so empowering. We donated that first 2,000 things. About half were donated and half were thrown away. They were just
Yeah.
broken toys, whatever. Um, we loved the feeling of that so much that the next 2,000 things, because we were just at that point, we were like, this is amazing.
Mhm.
So the next 2,000 things, we decided we were only going to donate the next 2,000 things. So we were very specific and donated 2,000 items out of our home,
Wow.
the next 2,000 items. And everyone thinks that that sounds impossible, but the statistics say that the average American home has 300,000 items in it. Yeah,
Wow, that is crazy.
it is absolutely crazy. And so when we did the next 2000, the ones that we donated, after that was done, we just noticed that our house felt so different. And now I will say that we had already donated and gotten rid of a lot because my mom had just moved in. So we had gotten rid of a ton to clear out an entire house or an entire room for my mom.
Right.
And so, I mean, and then when she moved in, that room was entirely empty. There was nothing in there. So I can't even imagine how many items we had gotten rid of just about 8 months before that. Um, but it was the most empowering thing. And what happened is suddenly we had all this space and energy that we painted our downstairs, which we had been putting off for 7 years. It
Mhm.
still had like white contractor paint from when we had bought our house. And so now we had a house that was beautiful and it felt like us. And it just, and when the contractor paint is flat in your dining room, it's Yeah, it was terrible. And so
Mhm.
now, if someone splatters something on the wall, it wipes off easily. And, you
Yeah,
know,
right.
it's so much better. But it really just, and it's so much quicker to pick up. It's not, now I will say my kids have to share a room right now since my mom moved in with us.
Mhm.
Um, and so we're still battling because their room is so tiny. It's honestly the size of like Harry Potter's closet. I don't know. But we're trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
So even though they don't have that much stuff, it just still feels cluttered.
Mhm.
So we're trying to figure it out.
Yeah, right. So it's a
But
journey.
it is. It's always going to be a journey.
Right,
We'll never have arrived per se,
right.
but it feels so much better than it used to.
Yeah,
And it's such an exciting thing to just not be the way it was.
yeah, yeah.
So,
So what would you say, like, do you have any tips for someone that's maybe saying, "Okay, I want this, I want this feeling of lightness, this feeling of feeling more freedom, I guess, in your
yes.
home." How does someone get started? How does someone just decide to make that happen?
Well, I really encourage people to start with daily things. If you have young children, start with decluttering their toys. If you don't have young children, start with decluttering your dishes. I know that a lot of people think I could never declutter my dishes, but we started and I host dinners all the time, but we only have 8 plates. There's 5 of us that live there and we only have 8 plates, and so that means that we can never have a stack of plates that's 20 plates high
Yeah.
because we only have 8 plates. We only have 8 bowls. And so the less you have, the less that can get dirty. And it's a concept that is so foreign to most of us here in the United States,
Yeah.
that we don't need as much as we think we need.
Mhm.
And, you know, we don't need 25 coffee cups when there's 3 adults that live there. And so it's just really a different concept, a different way of thinking,
Yeah.
uh, and just finding what you truly need. Sometimes giving yourself the grace to just say, okay, I'm going to put this stuff in a box and put it aside. If I don't open this box for the next 2 weeks, I can donate this whole box. And just being brave enough to do it. That's why
Mhm.
I call my business Encourage Living. It takes courage to get rid of stuff, and it takes courage to overcome your fears.
Yeah.
It's all about courage, and it
Mm.
you know it takes courage for all of that. And clothes is another great place to start because I cannot tell you how many times I've been on social media and seen people literally post pictures of a mountain of laundry that's bigger than my house. And I'm like, why would one person own that much laundry? And when really, how you can only wear one set of clothes at one time.
Mhm.
So why do we own 70 pairs of clothes?
Yeah.
Let's let's pare it down to like 10 outfits. And I
Mhm.
know people are like, you're crazy. I like clothes too. I love clothes actually. And I want to feel good in all my clothes. So if you don't feel good in your clothes, get rid of them. Keep
Yeah.
the ones you feel best in,
Mm.
and just be brave.
Yeah.
Be brave. You can do this.
That's amazing. And I mean, again, you guys that are listening can't see this, but I'm in my closet right now. So I know for sure sitting here next to all my clothes that I could definitely get rid of a lot.
Yeah.
And
It's exciting. It is
it
so
is.
exciting. Yeah.
So what would you say? I mean, in terms of leadership and how your life can be different, for you, what did decluttering make space for in your life? What did it allow you to do, or other benefits that you experienced from that?
Oh, so many things. Really, for us, I think that decluttering gave me time to think. For the first time in my life, I can tell you exactly what my core values are. I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that, we value our faith, we value education, we value fun and jokes, and and time together. Those are our 4 core values in our family, and we get to live those out every single day.
Yeah.
And, since we are decluttered, I get to, help my kids with their homework instead of cleaning up. And so I'm living out my core values.
Mm-hmm.
The other night, my son is currently obsessed with a YouTuber called James Veach, who responds back to spammers on email. And so the other night we sat down and watched James Veach YouTube videos together.
Mm-hmm.
So we get to live out a core value of fun by laughing together.
Mm-hmm.
We get to sit down and read together. We get to do things like that sometimes got overlooked before
Yeah.
because I was just always hustling
Yeah.
and busy with all the stuff that needed done.
Mm.
And there are some nights now that maybe the dishes don't get done, but that's because I'm purposely choosing my core values over the stuff. But it's not the end of the world if they don't get done
Mm-hmm.
because there's not as much to do now.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. And I think that for anyone who's a leader, I mean, just having that time to think is really important. It's actually it's actually necessary for us to grow and to come up with ideas and to just, have rest.
Yes.
So that is such a great step that all of us could probably take. Probably every person listening could take a step to reduce what we're dealing with on a daily basis and make time for space and rest. So
Yes.
awesome. All right. So Sarah, I would love to hear if you have any advice for someone who's listening who is a maybe newer to leadership. You've been leading for a long time and you've been leading in a lot of different roles. Any thoughts or tips for someone who's maybe just getting started and wants to grow as a leader?
I would say, first of all, keep things simple. The more you can keep things simple, the better things are going to be. Delegate as much as possible. It's okay to delegate. Um, and then just encourage the people you're leading. A lot of times, think about how much you love to be encouraged. And, I think about that especially now that I'm teaching, um, when I have students who are struggling, I try to pick out the 1 or 2 things that they're doing well and emphasize those.
Mm.
So if you can find 1 or 2 things that the people that you're leading are doing well, the more you can emphasize those, the more momentum I think that people just gravitate on.
Yeah.
People like to be encouraged.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's so important.
Yeah.
And have there been any mentors for you in your life that have impacted you in your leadership journey?
Oh my goodness, so many mentors. So many. And the amazing thing is about the world we live in now, some of them I haven't even met in person. But I think really, as far as in person, I have my friend Megan. She's actually our official like MOPS mentor mom.
Mhm.
And she has just poured in so much time teaching us the Word of God. She has prayed for us. She is always there, just cheering us on. And this last year has just been very hard for me, both medically and emotionally. She's just incredible. And business wise, my friend Lisa is just always there encouraging me and telling me not to give up. And as far as decluttering, a lot of my decluttering stuff that I've learned is from someone I've never met in person. Her name's Ali Casaza. I don't know if you've ever heard of her,
Yes. Yeah,
but
I
she
actually
is
have.
just,
Yeah.
yeah, she's so encouraging. And I just love gleaning wisdom from her.
Yes.
I think we're a lot different personality wise. She's a little bit more tough love than I am,
Yeah.
um, but
She
I
seems
love,
very structured, like very,
yes,
very structured. Yeah.
yes, but I love that because we all need different people to influence our lives,
Mhm.
and I just she just encourages me so much, and so I'm really thankful for her. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. Awesome.
yeah.
So, as we wrap up, Sarah, I would love to hear what you're learning because we definitely believe that leaders are learners and we can always be learning new things and growing. So, what's something you're learning right now?
Well, I currently have been really honing in on my Spanish since I've been learning to teach Spanish even more. And I just discovered this new app. It's called Duolingo. Have you ever heard of
Oh,
it?
yes, I have.
Yes, I think that anybody who's in leadership, if you want to be able to communicate better, um, Duolingo is incredible because it doesn't just teach you Spanish, like it teaches all different kinds of languages.
Hmm.
And like it even teaches people Klingon if they want to learn Klingon.
That'll come in handy in a very small percentage of situations.
So I just love it, and I think it's incredible, and it just helps me because I give this to my students for homework, and so
Right.
I do it as well just to encourage them along because I'm like, if I can do it, you can do it because I have a lot less time than you guys do.
Yes, right.
So yeah,
Which they may not think at this point in their life, but
yes, yeah, but it's true. So
yes, exactly. All right. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our listeners that I haven't asked you about, Sarah?
keep leading because the
Mm.
world needs really passionate leaders.
Yeah. So true.
Yeah.
So true. Awesome. So, Sarah, tell us the best way for people to connect with you. If they want to learn more about you and what you do, how can they connect with you?
They can go to facebook.com/ encourage living, but it's spelled a little different.
Okay.
It's IN courage living.
Yes. And we'll have the
Um,
links in the show notes for all of this too.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And then I'm on Instagram as Humes Sarah, and you can also find me on my website, which is sarahrosehumes.com.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah, so much for taking this time to talk with me today and to share your journey with the Christian Woman Leadership Podcast listeners. So
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. This was wonderful.
awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on the Christian Woman Leadership Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, would you consider leaving us a rating and review in your podcast app? This helps more women just like you find the podcast, and it also helps them to know whether the podcast would be a good fit for them. Just go to the show in your podcast app, then scroll down until you see the option for ratings and reviews. From there, you can tap to rate and write a review. It means the world to us when you take a couple minutes to do this, and thank you so much to everyone who has left a review. Now, don't forget, your leadership matters, and it's time for you to embrace your gifts and lead with confidence.